I particularly when I read about things that are pretty sad and that most young people don't want to know about, or don't seem to, a lot of them, because the young are always eternal, and their health is terrific, and they'll live forever. This is an attitude of mine we have as young people, and had it once too. But when you reach a certain stage, and things happen. Like, for instance, in 1990, my back went out, and I had to crawl back to the house. I was cutting wood or something like that. For 2 weeks, I was a caterpillar with a broken back. I really had to, I'd spend the afternoon lying down, curled up in an old wicker love seat in the mess hall and reading and looking out the window. So I wrote this poem about it, and it's called Decrepitude. Maybe I'm grateful for this, struck flat by my physical failings into a swale so deep I lie here helpless every afternoon, staring out blindly past jade leaf lace that bounds my square of sky, face to face again against the unfolding unforeseen. Vast mysteries cradle our falling curves. We float without desire for anything beyond this pulsing now, when every object hints infinity, and any fragile might can call up instant tears we can't explain. This wee translucent map, perhaps, that leads my book to venture boldly, hop by hop, across a vast white desert, tabletop. We read part of Shooting Flowers in the film. In this other case, we spent 7 years teaching in the winters over in the Mississippi Delta. And actually, compared with Arkansas, and I know this will be ironic to someone who has a different experience, but I felt like I was in a third world country over there. Why? And the children were so, it was a black school, wasn't supposed to be. State school, Mississippi Valley State, and it's where the president and the prime minister of England, I guess, or Canada, watched a basketball game there a while back. While we were teaching there, they won 1 game every year, whether they needed it or not. So we were living in town, and we were called one thing in town and another thing on the campus. And both names are not very good. So we went to a party at one of these government-sponsored housing units, and one evening, and of course everyone there was black except for a few whites. And I wrote this poem about it called Soul Food. Jolted from sleep at 5, I stumbled to the John, splashed water on my face, and then recalled the dream that woke me, a sense of stifling and gagging on half-cooked flesh. And lurking behind this, that real happening of 30 years before, one muggy Delta night outside the lights of Itabena, birthplace of B.B. King. A party in a get-em-out-of-town Fed funding housing. Laughing voices and brown faces, all of us dining low on the hog, dishing up odorous brown and greenish gray stewed chitterlings from a number 2 wash tub. Just tasting that bitter reek and smack of soil reality like cranes on chewed up heart, like blooms on breakfast kidney, my gorge heave and an urge to puke, choked back and swallowed down. Leaving as aftertaste another stinging memory of kids on schoolhouse steps, steps in 1930s Texas, and me, the new one, confronting the laughing face and voice of blonde and chubby Chucky. Hey, that's my old red sweater Mama gave away. I know it is, 'cause that's the elbow hole. It all came back, plus the shock and taste of blood from Chucky's fist, my split lip, and my new boy initiation fight. A flash of insight hit me beside that reeking tub of all beat-down people's daily pungent taste of schadenfreude. Turned to ritual, spiced up with rebel pride. The perverse memory of shit from piggy innards, a daily bath of designated blame, simply for being born, a 6-point yellow star, an imposed bouquet of shame, another initiation, renewed in washed-up stew. What did we humans do to wind up black and blue? So female, ugly, ignorant, poor, alone, crippled, ethnic, half-breed, old, queer, diseased, despised, despairing, alive. In 1975, I was in Filipino alone, Christmas, and it was raining, and the roof was leaking. I was thinking about the way the world was going, and so it happened right close to my birthday, December 12th. So I wrote this atomic prayer, 1975. We've all grown up under this threat of what we might do to ourselves. I may dissolve as a dew in a burst of light, or remain some seconds in this pulsing cloak, O cool, pervading unknown God. Give me, O shunned force, the power to plunge my thought through polyfoam facades, through biofilms of diffidence, to knead their wincing hearts. Help me to strike the compulsion from my gasping friend, nothing beneath it, O God. To lead out the fertile one from the glittering trash of our time without a backward glance at the fire. To shear off the bonds of splittering laws, symbols of our new distrust in our common nature, and of our failure to become uncommon, of our defensive smugness, our loss of hope, our loss of all that once divided the new world from the old. Make my eyes fly open to see, O God, with a gleam of miraculous surprise as it was in the beginning, before expedience struck off the sheen, that I may fly to the core of the mystery. Why the black robin at 10 p.m. with a realm of 6 roses sings unceasing loud and blithe in the green electric snap of streetcars. If I were a strong bird, I could climb with sweeping wings toward eternity. If I were a swift fish, I could dart toward the cold silver reef of eternity. Oh, if I were a diffused white cloud, I could hover tireless in the moving force of eternity. Selah, Amen, Cesium 137. I'm going to try to close with one or two cheerful things. My wife and I kind of decided that I was a pretty trippy romantic basically. This one is written for people who have a situation that is almost no hope at all. And there are lots of people in this situation and hanging around nursing homes for many, many 5 years and so, and catching everything that went around while I could see people in these situations. The hardest thing I ever had to do was to wish a happy birthday to a man with no legs who was nearly blind, and his family had not come to see him on his birthday. This is called a fool chance. Inconceivable to these young who live in health immortal. A time may come when one awakes impaled and isolate, a hopper on a thorn, caught by the shrike that stoops by night, or pinned by the tireless spider whose fatal web holds us from our hopes of home in another, of joy and work, of recompense to those we owe our lives. No struggle may avail to free our flailing reach from this cocoon of desperate failure. We marvel at our stubborn breath, curse memory for guilt and death, and length abandon and accept except waiting, watching the planets swing, confined to eye and mind alone, in time reduced to humble essence, light enough at last to go with grace, slip off the spike, escape the web, float through all bars, and lose ourselves forever, found only in the stars. To me, this is the unbeatable hope that people must have to live. We need everything we can to get through this life successfully. And yet, every moment, every day is a gift. Then I get into patriotism. After 9/11, every politician in the state and every place else was standing on the steps of some public building with his hand on his heart doing the Pledge of Allegiance and so forth. And all the flags in Japan were hung up. All the American flags made in Japan are hung up every place until they rotted down. And I noticed all this. A number of years ago, I wrote this pledge, and in it there is a tribute to Ben Kimball, who was an outstanding professor here for a long time, and a person we admired greatly. A sort of Democrat of the mind. He could be stuffy, but when he died, well, it really kind of went all over me, because he was kind of our Buddha. He was the only person I ever went to class to who always surprised me when the bell rang at an hour and a half class. What, is it over? Oh, okay. This sort of thing. And that's a wonderful thing. The man walked in with this mountain of erudition around him. He looked kind of like a plump Buddha, but he really had a beautiful, beautiful spirit, so there's hope for all of us. It is called pledge. Wait, you mean like little kids standing up and parroting stuff? Well, no, I don't ever exactly do that. Oh, sure, I do pledge, but mainly by the way I live, each breath drawn, but not on curbstones. Never socially and ostensibly out on display. I don't have the public face for it. Anyway, long ago, Cummings covered that in As Freedom is a Breakfast Food, and I sing of Olaf glad and big, and next to, of course, America, next to, of course, God, America, I love you, and Jefferson shine, perishing republic, took a good whack at demagogue values too. Specifics? Okay, you asked for it. Sure, I pledge freely and continuously with all the pure force of my being my lifelong allegiance to the dynamic democratic process itself, and to the dignity of the individual human, which it should truly and literally defend. But never to symbolic objects, all these banners and bunting, domed buildings, eagles clutching arrows, so adored by childish minds. Oh yes, I respect what they stand for, but they're still objects. Say, even in the halls of Congress, buddy, a spittoon is just a spittoon. Or even polished and pristine, shining beneath the flounce of Washington's bed, a chamber pot remains just a thunder mug. No loyalty, no oligarchy, and no damn loyalty owes either. And just as equally, I pledge my whole soul faith to that world democracy of towering dead humanists whose loud laughter down the ages blows away any 100%er oxymoronic idea of coerced coalition, so popular in times of public fear when our verbal Spartans, those powder pigeon men, constantly touting their strutting sovereignty and status quo freedom, a freedom which they never quite define. Though one might guess they mean their freedom to exploit and oppress. Authoritarians commit a deadly sin to thought. Upon all the proved ideological fruit within this civic garden, dear citizen child, thou mayest freely browse and ruminate, save only under charge of sacrilege and treason, that thou peep not beyond these safe glass-studded walls, nor dare to offer odious comparisons. And I honor often in my musing this side idolatry, as Ben Jonson said of Will Shakespeare, our own dear Ben Drew Kimball, that universal and truly academic, splendid humanist I knew, our Buddha, a gracious spirit housed in a pudgy body, a being infinitely beyond all sinecurist colleagues, one who restored in a dusty classroom my lost faith in that magic circle, a democratic academy of the mind. He urged us timid ones far out on the skiff ice of personal search, coaching by his generous ways, by surprising intimacy of thought from one who else shunned intimacy, but whose keen sense of justice made him aligned with the true and fair, driving our local bigot, who stepped in waving his Anglo-Saxon blood purity broadsides, stumbling back out of the majestic pub. In a flood of old English invective, he unlocked his word hoard, and faithfully he held up to scrutiny any idea from whatever humble or unlikely source, calmly citing facets and flaws as one might assess a gem. Yes, he could play the stuffy professor in a put-down, but mostly he sponsored and fostered us with his robust mind and a faltering heart that burst at last, as he said of his honored work, leaving us stunned and bereft, still clutching as his Socratic legacy one diamond bright conviction, that social compulsion and censorship to the vaulting eclectic intellect bulks hateful, alien, mere sargassum weed, clogging a sea of infinite possibility. Oh, shut up. You started this. I'm almost finished with this childish exercise, except for a few more dear and daily allegiances. I owe my honest love and respect to all sweepers of the earth, both human and lowly other, who make life pleasant and possible for us, the specialists, the self-exalted. And I renew and sustain my soul with the shy and assaulted beauty of this garden planet. And with my faith in the stubborn budding hope always rising in like lonely hearts. All these have been for long years my own survival kit, keeping me so far unsoured and safe from criminal rebellion and self-murder. Finally, and most of all, I owe whatever I do or be to that one trinity of right action my life embraces, that vibrant threefold path, a gift so splendid I thank the night radiant universe for my own lovely life chance to understand, to love, and to create, to move through each or all into the deepest glow of intense being, and then from this flowering, this overflow of grace to reach forth. Some even say, in just such way, all came to be. In any case alone, for me, this threefold way makes our life great. Three forms of love, all might be done to the final breath. The rest is silence. Shakespeare, Hamlet, Act 5, Scene 2. Okay, this is called dipping into who's who. Now, we live in the age in which we're all certified. We got a piece of paper, we got a diploma, we got all these things. This makes everything okay. In fact, some people falsify the diploma. So it must be. This is called dipping into who's who. And I was in the stacks one day, and I ran into all these who's who volumes and pulled one or two out. I thought about it. I wrote this. If brevity be the soul of wit, then what is boasting? These pages fairly drip with our desire to be respected and admired, omitting from these ads for family honor all affairs, divorces, missteps, dismissals, unfortunate espousals, and shady deals and compromises, plugging all gaps swiftly with every minor accolade salvaged from the yellow past. Hurling against time and mischance, a perfect paper blizzard of certified whereases, be it known. And lifting yet another cracking volume, I flick away a shining silverfish and read on, these brave summations of our best. Fairly sure, as the volumes closed and slid again to rest, that whirling galaxies do not care a whit of our flames, and may not know to whom these are addressed. I think I'll read something that just burst for a little bit. got it here. This is called Burning the Steer at Advent. He was my 2,000-pound pet. Actually, he was only about 1,100 pounds. And he lasted a long time. And he kind of got to me. He ate some wire. He got some wire and some bad hay. And this put him away after many, many years. Burning the Steer at Advent. December 5th, 2004. Dear Diary, today, diary, was especially dire. For Advent, I spent long rainy hours setting my last steer on fire. 1,000 pounds of coddled beef went up in smoky, boiling billows, flaring fat. We thought it was a wire in the innards that killed my hulking pet, and it had 14 years of fret about him and his paunchy ways. A fence improver, he would spend whole days sagging on the wire, reaching for greener grass, and waking me at 2 a.m. to chase his bulky ass out of the house yard, bucking and cavorting, ignoring my shouts, tossing his horns, arching his neck, closing his eyes, frisking his tassel tail, far too wise for me to frighten, too venturesome by half, creeping behind me sniffingly, nose out, just as I cut a tree that, falling, gave a clap and knocked his horn off at my feet, leaving a limply waving root that promptly grew another on my last and only 3-horned calf. This one was written, it's in the little chapbook. Some of these are, but many are not. It's called Getting It Together, and it's probably as good as I can do. I subscribe to Archibald MacLeish's definition of poetry in his poem Ars Poetica, in which he points out that it's impossible to make a work of art that covers every moment of our lives, and you would never have time to live. So everything is an assembly that suggests everything to the experience that the reader or listener brings to it. It's called Getting It Together, and it is, I guess you'd say, my statement about democracy. I was working a very hot day digging a foundation for a little house with a pick in 1970, and went over to recuperate and wipe my brow and everything, and sitting musing, and I thought I saw my father's face in miniature on the ground. You know, the mind plays tricks on you, and you see what you want to see. So I wrote this. Getting it together. Just when I thought he'd moved on forever, I saw my father's face appear from the ground. Pebble for a cap bill, grass stem for a nose, lower lip a chip of bark, pieces of leaf were pouchy cheeks, full of cut plug, red man, Brown's mule. Above them was a sprig of green. Around him, towering inch-tall boulders. His grin was just the same. Seems the earth is full of smiles, pregnant with shapes. All the families, here and here, there a win. Fall back and regroup. The chances in dirt are endless. There we are all mirrored. And there at last, we all connect. Now I'd like to read one about outdoor happenings with animals and so forth. And I'll finish up with a poem of my only out-of-body experience. This is called Knox, which means one time, at the moment. And this is the way nature is. Everything that makes my day has been something that just happened to happen at that time. I happened to catch it. It's all just unbelievable. But if you aren't aware all the time, if you aren't totally alive to to the day, as Thoreau says. Only that day dawns on which you are totally aware, alive. Knots, it must be wild. Beyond my door crack, 20 feet, muscled and fur mottled, taupe and blonde and tawny, the dog coyote aligns itself, stiff and snout forward with the drifting food sand it traced up slope. Once, years before, in snow, I'd been this close, only to say, boo, and watch coil fluid force reverse and drive its form through and over all to a last triumphant leap and gone, as now. Such rare moments compressed my woodwormer days into beads I tell over and over like prayers, a spirit diary. This is part that was read in this film. Our first year here, innocent and quick, beneath the supper table, white-footed mice took cracker bits from the hand. Gray fox pups peeped from their rock to spy our breakfast. The vixen barked a raucous greeting and fetched our supper scraps to them. The roadrunner flared its shining crest and met me at the door. The coon nightly unscrewed the cap to the cooking grease. Luckily, I noticed a solitary wasp stuffing my gun barrel with eggs and larvae. That drought summer, a hummer on the hammock stepped sideways to spear my sour bandana and shake its head in disbelief. Only that once the Virginia rail appeared trotting along the ghost of rail fence. One final summer, the tanager's stuttering song defined our clearing, and twice a red star hung above us, flaring its butterfly wings. After a storm, a rose-breasted grosbeak came to call. That one spring, a whippoorwill on the gatepost hammered our ears till dawn. One evening, a trio of tiny owls fluttered above our heads in whickering passion. Just that one summer, the black-crowned night heron graced its favored rock above the rapids. And once I saw 5 wood duck babies race across our pond and back to mother. For their first and final season, I flushed a cock grouse in our yard and heard their fruitless drumming for their mates. And one time only, 5 harsh-voiced cranes sailed past the mess hall to flare and settle at our stream. Once only we stood nude, thigh-deep, and bathing when with a swoop and flutter a heron lit beside us. That privileged time alone, I witnessed speckled king snakes twining and vibrating in a bright caduceus across spring grass. It was destiny that I came upon a watery pas de deux of joyous snappers, long necks grazing and caressing, careening around their bedrock pool, transformed by desire from ungainly to unearthly. It was truly beautiful. It should have been filmed. I wish that somehow it could have been caught. It is a discipline to set self aside, to watch, say, a fire blue skinklet slowly map the thickets on my hairy leg, while a harvestman pair below dozy-does against my toes. Even their arts enrich me, like the once-found cunning doorless straw-ball nest of a golden mouse, face high in our thicket. This is beyond price. What's the value if I watch a sun-drunk wren slip toward bliss, basking with nodding head, spread wings, and shuttered eyes, when I might as well blunder on unawares, as I blundering I several times came nose to nose with fellow bears. What value to the time I freed a young goshawk, buried to the breast in pond mud, when it missed its prey, and laughed to see it explode back to grace and air and spray and power? And why compelled to snatch back my thumb and beg pardon of a piece of deadwood